Oh, I think it's actually working.
We are streaming. Meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Is it?
So,
it's telling me it's still setting it up.
yeah, no, it says streaming here. So,
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, hold on a minute.
now I've got the streaming link.
I need to mute that.
My page.
Right, that's better. Right, muting. So, if you share it to your page and I'll share it to mine.
Fab.
Just make sure you got your volume turned off like I just didn't.
Volume?
Mute the YouTube channel. Because otherwise you get double feedback. I've forgotten the name of my Facebook page. Anybody tuning in, this is going to look really strange because it's just me and Kristy ignoring each other and typing furiously. Oh my God, Facebook is so slow. Here we go.
Everything's slow.
All right. After a few.
If I see myself on YouTube, I mean on Facebook, it's going to be very confusing.
It is. I can't tag your page. Come on, tag.
Oh, I didn't tag you. Oh, there's a thought. So here's the issue.
What's that?
And I know people are probably watching us right now, and I'm so sorry for the rudeness and just continuing to talk. Can people still be interactive with us? Can they?
They can comment on YouTube, and we should be able to see their comments on YouTube.
Great. So if I go to your YouTube channel.
Yes.
Which is the Autistic Advocate.
Yes, you should be able to find it that way.
How insulting am I? Oh, okay.
Automatically started a video.
Sorry, I missed that.
I said you must have had autoplay on.
Oh, that redness. Look at that. Stay home with me. Okay, YouTube, I do for half of my life anyway, watching YouTube. Oh my God. Do you ever go down the rabbit hole of YouTube?
Yes. Just
some of the things I find myself watching.
To be fair, most of my stuff's on, it's all autism videos, but it's just, you know, like when it just automatically plays the random next one kind of thing. It's just bizarre, some of the stuff that gets posted.
Yes. So how do I open this up so I can see what people are saying?
Hold on a second. I'm just trying to make sure that's...
We've got 8 people watching.
We have people watching. That's all.
Yeah, we can see what people are saying.
That's it. So if you mute the video,
we've got 8. That's so funny.
There you go. You're on delay.
Hello,
oh yes, 8 people watching.
Hi, Laura.
Oh, you can see. How can you see who's there?
So I've opened up our screen
on Zoom.
The YouTube video clip.
All right.
And
like to full screen.
Serious lag. So I've opened it up, and then on the right is like a chat bar, and I can see people chatting.
Ah, yes. Oh, how bizarre. There's also, I can see you in delay as well. That's really weird.
Hey, hello. What?
Hi, folks.
Hi, Susan.
Sorry for this. It's been a bit of a nightmare.
Oh, yes. I take full responsibility. I should have set this up.
No, because it's Zoom, because we tried on my Zoom account as well, and it still wasn't linking to Facebook.
Yeah,
so.
Zoom's not letting us stream live, unfortunately, to Facebook. So here we are, and it's really bizarre because
I'm putting your face back on. There you go. I'm looking at you now. That's much easier.
It's not easier for me because of the lag. It's very confusing, and I'm watching myself and I look confused. I'm going like this in the video. So maybe if I don't look at it and I just focus. Oh, I can get the thing.
I've put the mini Zoom bar in front of me so that I can see I'm covering you up and not looking at myself. And
how do you do that?
if you go back to your little camera icon where we talk to each other. So if you minimize it, if you press the little minimize button like you would drop it down to the toolbar at the bottom, it makes it smaller. You should do anyway.
Drop it down to the toolbar. I'm so sorry, everyone. We're just
so in the top right hand corner of your computer where the little cross is, where you'd usually get rid of the screen.
On what?
On Zoom. Go back to Zoom. Go back to where we're talking to each other.
I minimized it.
Yeah, so you should have made the screens really small, and you can move that around and cover your face up so you're not looking at yourself.
No.
Hold on, I'll share my screen.
I used to be smart.
Hold on, that one.
I used to know how to use technology.
Right, you can see me, yes? So I'm going to, no, that's the wrong screen.
Oh, I can see you up in the corner now. That's perfect.
Right, is that better?
Yeah, that's perfect. God. Oh, I just made you really big. Okay. What is happening? What is happening?
What a nightmare.
Okay.
Is that okay? If I stop sharing, is that better? Is that the same? Is that worse?
Where have you gone?
All right, okay. So I need to just keep sharing. That's fine. Hold on, there. Is that okay?
That's great.
Okay.
That's great.
Oh, this has been a complete nightmare.
Innuendo Central. Oh, I missed them. I missed the innuendos. Wow.
This was fun. I enjoyed that.
And that's all we've got time for tonight, folks.
Yeah, we're off. I should have brought a bottle of whiskey upstairs with me.
Oh my goodness. B just commented, this is what happens when you spend 6 months in the bush rolling around in the bush. Because I did this little Insta story yesterday. I have so much Insta story regret. I really do. So many times. As you know, Kieran, because I'm away from my children, I've got my 21-year-old here. So I got up at 9 a.m. yesterday morning and built an entire website and finished at 1:30 this morning. And by the time I left the house, I thought, okay, I've been doing this for hours. I've had one loo break. I've had one meal. Maybe I should go for a walk. Hadn't had a shower or anything. I mean, I don't need to be diagnosed. I am diagnosed, but there's enough information in this right here to tell you I'm autistic. So I thought, okay, I'll get out and I'll go for a walk and get some fresh air. All I did was put my shoes on and I went outside and I looked at myself and I realized I looked like I had been lost in the bush for 6 months and just walked out. My hair was everywhere. My skin was, wow. Just, I had food on my jumper and, oh, it was just crazy.
So when I shared that video of you being drunk the other day, then that was pretty much not too far from the truth.
What was that?
You made a video, didn't you? You just got out of bed and your hair was crazy, and I posted about you being an alcoholic. This is your intervention, remember?
It was my intervention, even though I do not drink alcohol. But yes, that is a very important information. Penny, I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness, we had.
To be fair, Penny, you haven't missed anything at all. Literally, just us being complete technophobes and just hammering keyboards and ignoring each other and swearing under our breath.
Yeah, and out loud.
I might have to stop screen sharing here, Kristy, even though it's going to mess you up, just because I'm looking at my YouTube video and it's just multiple versions of us. It's looking a bit strange.
Oh, yeah,
so
okay.
You might have to watch yourself in delay. If you click the zoom thingy, it should come back up though. You know, like your normal camera.
What?
The zoom icon, you know, the little video camera where we talk to each other.
Didn't we just do this 5 minutes ago and I epically failed?
Look at your toolbar at the bottom of the screen. There is a picture of a video camera on it. Can you see it?
A video camera. Oh,
A
you mean
little
like
icon. The zoom icon. Yeah, click it. Yeah. And then we're talking to each other in real time now. Or we should be.
No.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we are. See?
Okay. Oh, Kieran, this is great. I'm going to. Yeah, but how do I move you over so I can see what everyone's saying?
You might just have to keep minimizing it every so often.
I just want to apologize again to everybody for being so technical. Okay. I've lost you.
Actually, I can see it. I can see the comments.
I can only
I'm really clever.
You.
Yeah, but I'm wonderful.
Aren't you? Aren't you?
Yeah, look.
Right,
B said the same. Kristy, if you change the view on Zoom, so Kieran is the main screen, and then pin his feed, it won't keep going back to you, so you won't have to look at yourself. I don't know. No, B, she means Kristy was watching herself on YouTube, so there was a delay, which was really confusing her.
I want to be able to read the comments on the screen and see Kieran as well, because when I look at myself in YouTube, it's very off-putting because there's lag. So I'm ADHD brain, very distracted.
Now that you have me and you up on the screen, if you look to the top right-hand corner of your screen where the little square icon is, where it minimizes, there's one square. It should be one square over another. If you click on that, it makes us small, but you can see YouTube behind it.
It makes us small.
Yeah. Have you clicked it?
Yes.
Has it made us small? Or have we disappeared?
I'm not really sure. I can't. Let's just stop, you know.
Yeah, let's talk. Let's just talk. Look at. I'll read the comments too if there's anything important comes up.
All right.
Okay. I'll be comment reader.
Sure. Oh yeah. So open a set. Oh no, because it's not. Anyway, let's move on. Thank you, B, but I can't because it's not a.
It's not a browser window.
Oh, I can get YouTube up on my phone.
Oh, you can. Yes. There you go.
Yes.
Turn down the volume though, otherwise you'll hear yourself in lag.
No, I don't want to. I will. Sorry, everyone.
PDA there coming out there.
Oh yeah.
Here's something useful. No, I will not do it.
If it's my idea, yes. If I come across it by accident, even better. All right. Oh, look at us.
In all our glory.
Handsome. Okay, let me find you. There you are.
There I am.
Now I can just talk to you and I can see the comments. Oh, this is wonderful. Thank you everyone for being so patient. Okay, let's begin. Because look, we're only 37 minutes into it.
Yeah. But everyone that missed that 37 minutes, it was amazing. It was like the best thing you ever would have heard of. It reminded me of my mum.
It reminded me of my mother in the 90s. You'd go to touch the computer. She'd go, I don't know what I'm doing. And you'd go to touch the computer to help and she'd flip out and go, no, don't touch me.
That's exactly what my mum used to do.
Yes. So, maintaining connection through difficult times, and you know,
which we've epically failed to do.
Yes.
The irony here is just absolutely amazing.
I know, isn't it? Again, that's all we have time for, folks. Sorry that we failed you. Go back to isolation and be severely depressed and anxious like the rest of us. My goodness. Okay. So obviously when we're talking about difficult times, we're referring to what's going on at the moment in the world. with
Should we say the word?
coronavirus.
Yes, that's it. We shall vow never to use that word again.
COVID-19. I mean, really, it's interesting because the isolation thing, I must admit, I was quite blasé about this to begin with. You and I were having ongoing conversations about what was happening, and it kind of grew more serious over time. And then we found ourselves in the position we're in now. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there joking, and I was one of them, saying, oh, you know, isolation, autistic, no problem. But it can be a problem when there's no choice, when the choice is taken away, and it's important to have some form of access to connecting with others.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the hardest thing at the minute is that it's enforced. It's not a choice. And I know for many people, kind of being isolated obviously isn't a choice, but that, you know, it's kind of to have that permanently, or at least, well, permanently as it is at the moment, removed from you, that aspect where you can kind of, you know, you can't leave your house whenever you want, or you can't go to the shops whenever you want, or you can't see people when you need to see them. Once that's removed, that's a huge thing to kind of have to correlate. And it's, I mean, to a degree, if you look at my household, not an awful lot has changed, because we don't go to masses of places anyway, kind of thing. And, you know, the children like to be at home. It's their safe space, and that's kind of where they enjoy being, and we do too. But to have that choice taken away is it's like being in prison to a degree, I guess, isn't it? And it's not that I've ever been in prison, but to have that removed, that freedom removed from you to be able to leave your house whenever you want is a massive thing to be able to have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for so many people that can instill that sense of anxiety and that panic. And I feel when you have, I guess, sanctions placed on the food that you're buying, what's available to us. And, you know, again, we don't know our privilege. At the foundation of this is that we're a very privileged nation, and we're used to having everything available to us. And I think when people have restrictions or limitations placed on them, and for me, especially being a PDAer, I actually thought this would be very anxiety raising for me. It's not as bad as I thought it might be, but I wonder how much that has to do with the fact that my 21-year-old daughter did contract the virus, and I have been in quarantine with her, and I have cared for her, and the panic that came with potentially being exposed to it was dealt with during the experience of being exposed to it. So there was, I don't want to say a sense of relief. It's not a nice thing at all. She was very lucky. She's young and healthy and was very lucky to come out the other side. But I find it can be difficult not to project into the future when we're in a situation like this.
Absolutely.
And I find a lot of the anxiety and panic for people is around, how are we going to do this long term? How long is this going to be for? When am I going to get some freedom? When am I going to get some breathing space? So I consistently have to say to myself, bring it back to the moment, always in the moment. You know, sometimes I tell myself 1 day at a time, and when that feels like too much, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, one moment at a time. So I'm also in a position of privilege because I go home on Friday, and then I'll be with my smaller children full time, and things will change for me dramatically. But I feel fortunate to have a set of principles that I live by that will help me manage that.
I think
so how are you?
I think actually what you've just said there, actually that sums up what I was thinking while you were talking, because my anxiety initially around this was not even about the virus or catching the virus or what it would be like if we caught it, or not even so much around other people getting ill and dying that I know, but more about sorry, that sounded really drastic because obviously not everybody's dying, but I know people that have died, so it's really quite close to home for me. But my anxiety was more around how other people were acting, that weren't taking it as it became obviously more serious. And even I was looking back over our conversations this morning, and you can see the point where we both kind of realized, actually, this is going to come to our front door. And then this is actually going to become a thing that's going to affect everybody. And that probably happened a couple of weeks even before the British government clocked onto the fact that this was actually coming to our front door. And the Australian government's obviously a week or two behind the British government. And so it's kind of, for me, it was anxiety around people were being attacked for panicking about buying food and stockpiling and stuff like that, which, was and still is a serious issue. But I understand where that fear and anxiety came from, because I felt it in myself. I wanted to go and stockpile. I wanted to go and protect my family and know that we would have food to last for weeks. And there's a part of me still that wishes that I'd gone out and bought flour. Has become like my best friend over the last week. I've done so much cooking and like from scratch and making bread and pasta and stuff like that. And now I can't get hold of pasta, and we can't get hold of bread, and I can't get hold of flour now. So it's kind of, I wish that I had kind of gone out and bought a few extra of those things. And so I understand where that fear and anxiety came from. But as time has gone on and it's become more serious, to still see people having parties, to still see people getting together and, spreading this thing around, or not knowing if they're spreading it around. And it's not about them getting sick. They don't seem to realize that they will infect other people who may get seriously ill and die from this. And that's where my anxiety has really, really been. But then on top of that, it's kind of, my eldest son, we've been making sure we've been going out for walks as a kind of like, just in there's 5 of us, so just in kind of in pair, we've been taking out one of the kids one by one kind of thing, just to get out for 20 minutes and move around and get some fresh air. But my eldest son said he doesn't want to go outside because he's fearful of catching it. He's fearful of other people. And then that's kind of something that I keep having to talk to him about, because that's really set in with him, that he's now fearful of other people, and he doesn't want to get sick, and he doesn't want us to get sick. More importantly for him, he's not as bothered about himself as he is us. And that's, managing that has been really, really difficult. And it's kind of that fine line between, we are really honest with our children to the degree that things that we know that they can cope with. We never lie to them. We tell them the truth as much as is safe for them. But it's, where do you go with this? Because we have no control over the information that we give them, because we have no control over it ourselves. We don't know what's happening really, and that's what's hard for us.
It is really difficult, and I share in what you've just said. I'm very honest with my children and transparent most of the time. And as parents, we find ourselves in a difficult position of not having enough information and living through uncertainty. And as autistic people, that can be difficult for us as well. It's certainly difficult for me. Something that I've been doing is taking myself back to earlier years when my children were diagnosed, before I knew that I was autistic, and when I was really struggling and I was in a really dark place parenting. And one of my girls at the time could not leave the house for a number of years because her anxiety was so severe. We couldn't get in the car, we couldn't walk to the door. There'd be an instant meltdown, and it was very stressful. But we basically, as a family, closed our doors for about 3 or 4 years, and going anywhere was rare. And my husband was working and I was parenting full time, and it got really dark for me. I came out the other side of it. I really changed my thinking changed the way I thought about the situation I found myself in. And, you know, I remember being in this moment where I was cleaning my daughter's room, and I thought to myself, if everybody in the world were raising autistic children, if everybody in the world were sharing the same challenges, if everybody in the world had a similar lifestyle, if I went out into the community and were met with families just like mine, if I drove my children to school and was met with families just like mine, I wouldn't feel so panicked and isolated. I would feel a commonality, solidarity. I'd feel like this was normal. This was our normal. I would be able to stop looking outside of our family home and comparing our situation to what I assumed were other people's lifestyles. And so I started to come to the realization that I was suffering so much inside, not because we were an autistic family, but because I was waiting for the day when we'd have a normal life. And I had to come to the realization that actually this was our normal. And it was incredibly painful for me because I was fighting it all the time and I was wanting to wish it away. And I was waiting for the day it wouldn't be anymore. So I had to start thinking like, this is our normal. I need to find a way to find calm under any circumstances, under any conditions, in whatever way I can. And over time it got easier, and I stopped believing and feeling like we were this family who was so different to everyone else and we were really struggling. And, you know, as I calmed down and I started to feel good about my life and I started to focus on what I wanted our future to look like, what I wanted for myself, my children started to respond to the change in me and the anxiety started to calm down. So I'm trying to implement that into today. Yes, we're in self-isolation. Yes, we're in quarantine. Yes, there's toilet paper missing from the shelves. Yes, there is chaos going on everywhere. But in this moment right now, we are okay and we are safe and we have each other. And my daughter's a vegan, so I've been forced to eat vegan for 2 weeks and cook everything from scratch. And there's always fresh produce at the supermarket. There's always frozen vegan food because no one wants to eat vegan because frozen processed vegan food is crap. But there are so many small things to be so incredibly grateful for. And the thing with having the autistic brain is that we are so focused on this big picture. We are such universal thinkers. You know, we really take in the entire scheme of things. And I really tend to project into the future and go, oh my God, Kieran and I have had to cancel our tour. Oh my God, I've had to cancel 2 tours. What if this happens? And what if that happens? And the truth is we have no idea what's going to happen. Absolutely no idea. I don't know if what I see on the media is true or not. I'm honestly going to say that. I don't know if the information that's being given to people is factual or not, but it doesn't matter to me. I'm safe in this moment. I have what I need. I'm okay. And so I keep bringing myself back to that.
Yeah, you've put really in a much better way of what I've been saying for the past few days to different people, is that you can only control the situation that you have in your own four walls at the moment. You know, we have no control over what's going on outside our houses, how governments are dealing with things, how doctors and nurses are dealing with things, and whether we catch the disease or whether we don't catch the disease, whether there is food, whether there is no food. We have no control over those things. All we can do is control ourselves right now and control our families and maintain that as safe as possible environment for our families. And that's all we can do right now. So, and you're right, it's kind of, see, at the beginning, I was accused by several people of catastrophizing, which is what you've effectively described there. And actually kind of I've been able to not say I told you so, but kind of that, really, to a degree, of saying what you saw as catastrophizing, I could see the pattern in how things were going, and I could see the logical steps to me, that bigger picture. I could see how the dots were connecting and how it was going to kind of end up, and that, you know, there's no validation in that for me whatsoever, because I didn't want it to end up like this. Obviously, nobody wanted to be in the position that any of us are in. But you know, but to a degree, what other people saw as catastrophizing was me actually taking control, was me saying, I can see this pattern of events occurring, so I'm going to prepare for this pattern of events. And that's why I say I can empathize with the people who have gone and panicked and stockpiled. They haven't panicked at all. A lot of that has been reasonable decisions based on, toilet rolls is a bit of a weird thing for me, but the food and things, the longer term food, the dried foods, the tin food, the frozen food, those kind of things, I can understand where that has come from. And that's been, to me, a lot of that has been rational. It's not been panic buying at all. And it's, yes, there is an element of selfishness there because other people are now going without. But, you know, it's kind of, we all do what we can to protect our families and ourselves. And at the minute, like I said, just like you've just highlighted perfectly, just taking that over encompassing ball of welled anxiety and bringing it in as close as possible and saying, I can only control this, so let's look at this, and whatever's going on there is going to happen regardless of whether I worry about it or not, you know. And it's just so difficult, isn't it, that
it really is. And by nature, that's how we think, Kieran. You know, we're wired in such a way that we have problem-seeking and problem-solving brains. And so what you're saying there is so correct. You know, we look at the bigger picture, we find the patterns, we predict what comes next, and you were absolutely on the ball. You have been this whole time. I think what a lot of people do as well, I mean, I talked about this on my Insta story at 1:30 this morning when I was completely wired from building an entire website in, 12 hours. I'm seeing on the news, and do you know what? I never watch commercial TV, but we're in this house in quarantine. We have no Netflix or anything, so commercial TV it is.
Oh, bless you.
I know. Who am I? Who am I? I've been watching Neighbours. Let's not even go.
Oh my goodness, you've lost your whole identity now, haven't you?
I know. Who is this person? People reporting each other, I saw these gym goers. Now, the gyms are obviously closed with good reason. And I don't know whether you have this in the UK, but we have outdoor gyms that are free for people to access.
No, we don't. It's too cold. There's no fun in that whatsoever.
Everywhere. And you just go there and you help yourself and you exercise. So on the news, there was somebody just stopped on the side of the road filming all these gym goers exercising on these outside gyms and saying, they're spreading germs, they're touching the bars and they're doing this and they're doing that. And these people looked like they didn't care. And so most people would watch that and assume that they're selfish and they don't care whether other people get the virus. They're not taking it seriously. And I get it. Those actions are completely irresponsible and I understand that. But what I'm interested in, what I'm thinking about is the underlying nature of why they're there. And we are a diverse species. We know this. Some people, we all have different needs. And I look at those kinds of people and I wonder, how important is it to them to be able to access that activity every day to stay sane? And, you know, it's easy for me to sit back and say, just exercise in your house for God's sake. Do some push-ups and whatever else you do, because the thought of going to the gym makes me want to vomit personally. I'm allergic to exercise. But the people that are going in and, like you said, buying things, and I wonder what's driving that. I do not believe that people are just outright blasé and selfish. I think that some people are anxious and their coping mechanism is to ignore and pretend nothing's happening.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot in my own family, you know, a great deal of anxiety, but people carry on with life as though nothing's going on. You're not allowed to talk about it. We're not going to talk about this because then I have to think about it and I won't cope. So it can be a coping mechanism to continue on with life as normal and act like you don't know better. I'm just going to read some comments. Sorry, I haven't checked in.
That's okay. That also kind of describes a lot of undiagnosed autistic people and a lot of late diagnosed autistic people. Well, not just late diagnosed. It describes a lot of autistic people that kind of haven't accepted themselves and have accepted themselves but can't get past the long-term kind of trauma and exhaustion from being so anxious all of their lives. And that the more anxiety is about control, isn't it? And the more anxious we are, the more rigid we become and the more inflexible we become. And that's just humans, that's not just autistic people. The more inflexible and the more rigid we become in our thinking and the way that we do things, the more binary we become, the more control we have to have over certain things, because they're the things that stop us getting anxious. But we still get anxious, so we exert more control over it, and it keeps going on and on and on. And then that's I think that's what's probably, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's underlying, I think, a lot of the reactions that are going on right now, that it's, you know, people are sticking to their, you know, they're still going to the gym, they're still doing their things, and it's almost in defiance of what's going on, in that, you know, there's this horrible thing ravaging across the world and hurting a lot of people, but I'm still going to do the thing that I need to do because that's what keeps me safe. And it's getting past that is such a different, and that's a, you know, both of us know getting past thinking like that is a long-term process. So you can expect in extreme environments like we're in right now, that's just going to get worse, not better. You know, people are going to become more inflexible rather than more flexible, and it's exerting control over what they can exert control over, even if that's to the detriment of themselves as well. It's hard. I mean, what you said before as well about when you were kind of recognizing once your children have been diagnosed that you needed to get past the whole kind of comparing yourself to other people and all of that kind of thing. I never went through that so much because I was kind of on the verge of accepting myself when I first had children anyway, so I'd already gotten past that kind of stage of the journey. But what is analogous to me is back when, I mean, even when I got my diagnosis, I was 23 when I got diagnosed, so it's like 17-18 years ago now.
25 years ago.
Silence you. 30 years ago. You completely throw me off track now.
35 years ago.
But what the emotions that I recognize I have gone through over the last few weeks were very much the emotions I was going through on a day-to-day basis back then, in terms of, you know, when this first started, when the lockdown first started here, you know, I was exhausted. I said to you, didn't I? I was vibrating. Literally, my whole body was vibrating. And I could feel it. I wasn't physically shaking, but I could feel all the atoms in my body just kind of doing this. And that's how I was feeling all the time before I knew who I was, before I accepted who I was. And it was kind of, that anxiety was just there constantly. And that's I think is why the kind of about, if you'd have talked to me about 10 days ago, if we'd have had this conversation, you'd have been talking to a completely different person, because I was buzzing and because I was edgy and I was anxious and I was flitting between being like really, really happy and really, really low and all of those kind of things, and being really defensive and cross and all of that, all of those kind of emotions. And that's what I was going through like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, however you want to call it. You know, that's what I was going through daily. The first kind of 23 years of my life, that was my life. And, you know, so that's overcoming that in the last week has been so hard as well, because I've had flashbacks and all sorts, and it's really taken me back there. And that's been, and on top of everything that's going on as well, having to deal with that. And for anyone that's listening that's not autistic, this is like extra layers of difficulty that we're going through that you're not. And you know, and not to belittle what you're going through, because you will be anxious as well, and you have the same worries that we do, but we are dealing with these extra things because we have had all this trauma applied to us all our lives. And for people I keep seeing people saying, oh, autistic people must be dealing with this so much easier because, you know, you all want to stay at home and you don't want to see people, and you know, but you know, we're dealing with trauma that you're not dealing with right now, and it's that makes our lives so much more difficult.
Yeah, it does. And as much as I sit here and say, you know, I have this process that I go through where I bring myself back to the moment and I express gratitude, I haven't been like that in every moment. You know, it was only a few days ago that I was crying and I was sleeping all day, trying to process fear and grief and sadness and worrying about our community and families losing access to support that they normally have.
Yeah,
our family being one of those families, and worrying about where this process might take people in terms of their emotional well-being, their physical well-being, the disabled community. Somebody's just commented there that their child is gluten-free. We're a gluten-free household too. And we've had a panic that there won't be any gluten-free breads left, because I know what that does to my two little people. And so if we can shift the conversation a little bit, when we have experienced losing access to our support networks. So here's my situation. I'm going home on Friday. My husband's returning to work. He's a shift worker. His hours are different all the time. I will be parenting for a large part of the time on my own, not leaving the house, not having anybody come in. We are an immunocompromised family, so we're in the higher risk category. How can we remain connected to each other and create calm in our homes and continue to move forward in acknowledgement that what's going on outside our homes is going on, and that we need to be conscious of how we live?
And go.
That's the question.
That's the question.
That's the question.
That's the question. Well, I guess there are a million different answers to that, because it very much depends what your home situation looks like and what you personally have going on and what your children have going on as well, in terms of different co-occurring conditions and other things. But I think as a general rule, I mean, the situation that we're in is that, you know, I've got 3 children. We're lucky. There's 5 of us. You know, we're all relatively fit and healthy. My youngest daughter has a very restricted diet. It's mostly cheese and quavers. So, you know, we have worries about kind of dairy products and things like that, and actually, you know, those things being available at the moment. So it's kind of, we have worries about her food and things like that. My middle boy, he's quite affable. He just get on with everything. He struggled with not seeing his friends at the moment. That's his biggest struggle kind of thing, because he plays out an awful lot. And my eldest boy, who we have spent the last 3 months gradually building up school and things like that. He was on a part-time timetable and he's still on it, but you know, he's settled in because he'd had a transition from one school to another school. And he'd finally got to the point of settling in, and then all of a sudden our dining room table was the school. You know, so it's taken him out of an environment that he's taken months to get it to work his way into, and now all of a sudden he's been ripped away from that, and with no idea of how long that's going to be for. And
Yes.
that's the uncertainty is the worst thing at the moment.
Yes.
So in terms of connecting for us, what we have done is, first of all, we've said, you know, because as every other school in the world is probably doing right now, they are piling stuff on the internet for children to sit and do, and you know, like some schools are setting deadlines with homework and things like that. And I have said to my children, step one, school out the window. Okay. I used to work in education, but I'm no longer teaching. I'm not a teacher. Okay. So I'm sitting down and looking at their work and thinking, oh my God, I don't even know what this is. How am I supposed to teach you how to do this if I don't know how to do it? So we've taken a whole step back from those demands and those pressures. And I think that's where I'm leading to, the word demand, which is obviously where a lot of where you come from as well. So those demands we've taken away. We are doing educational things. We are doing life skills. We're doing cooking. We're doing gardening. We're doing, my children all love drawing, so we're doing loads of drawing, but we're doing things like graffiti, so we're bringing in elements of literacy. Obviously they don't know those things are coming in, but they're doing it naturally. But we're not doing school work, because at the moment their mental health is the most important thing, and their whole world, like ours, has been picked up, turned upside down and shaken out. So nothing, they have no control over everything, so we're just giving it back to them. So, you know, although normally we would have we wouldn't let our children like go on the Xbox and things all the time, but we are letting them go on them more, because that's their biggest connection to their friends. They're talking to their school friends, and they're talking to their outside of school friends all the time over their Xbox Live. Even while they're not playing, they've got their headsets on and they're talking to their friends. So it's maintaining those relationships, so that when they eventually come back into the real world and they are having those physical, the geographical relationships are coming back, it's not just to a bunch of people they haven't spoken to for 6 months. It's keeping that familiarity up with them. And then for us, we're having so much family time. This is an opportunity to us. That's how we're looking at this. We have no control. Like you, my work has been impacted. You know, I've lost huge amounts of work over the next 3 months, because lots of my work is physical, needing to be in buildings consultancy. You know, because I go in and work with a lot of different autism organizations and things, and it's about how their services are delivered. And I can't do that remotely. It's difficult to do that remotely. So, but at the minute, I've got no control over my income. So what I'm doing is taking that and putting it to one side. There's schemes in place here in the UK about mortgage deferments, people who have business spaces are getting, you know, money from the grants from the government and things like that. But my thinking over this is that everybody, not just me, everybody is in the same position right now. Everybody in the country, everybody in your country, or you will be in a week or two's time, you will all be in the same boat, paddling furiously together. So I don't see that. And I don't see at the moment that banks are going to be repossessing anybody. Private landlords, they might be a different thing, but you know, it's kind of all these things that we are worried about. We've got no control over, but everybody has no control over it either at the moment. So all we keep doing is bringing it back to, let's have fun, let's have good times, let's build on our mental health, and let's just keep as positive as we can and do things together, be a family like we've never, you know, we've got opportunities now that we've never really had, because both me and my wife work. You know, we spend as much time we work from home, so our kids are lucky in that we're around a lot more than lots of other children's parents are. But you know, we just have to use this time to be as positive and to be as family friendly as possible. And then I'm hoping to a degree that things don't change too dramatically when things get back to normal, because I'm enjoying this time with my kids at the moment. You know, so it's that way of kind of thinking.
Me too. And I love what you said about school. I really do. If anything, I'd love for people to really understand that there is not a small window of opportunity for young brains to take in information. If our children miss a year or two, and that's going beyond what we're expecting, but if our children miss a couple of years of education, we're people. Our brains don't stop working after a certain age. We catch up, we learn things. People go to university in their later years and learn a complete new skill set and become qualified and specialise in areas. And, you know, it's rubbish that our children are going to get so far behind they can't catch up. That's not how the human brain works.
That's social conditioning as well, because we've been conditioned that between the ages of kind of 16 to 21, that's make or break time for all of us. That's what we've been taught and that's what we've been told. And it's not true at all. You know, there were, when the schools closed here, we have exams at the end when children reach the age of 10. They're called SATs here. And it's basically, it's for school league tables. It's not for the children at all. It's nothing to do with the kids, really. They just sit the exams, and the better they do, the better the school sits on a school league table. Now, there were children on the news that were crying about the fact that they were missing out on these SATs exams because they'd worked so hard for them. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, like, this is social conditioning in action. These exams mean nothing to these children in reality, absolutely nothing. They're not for them. They're not reflective of them. They're just literally for a school position in a league table.
That's right.
So, you know, and it's the fact that they're crying on the news because they can't sit them and because they've worked so hard towards them. I was sitting, this is an opportunity. And even with older children that are about to sit their kind of, I don't know what the kind of post-16 qualifications are in Australia, but we have GCSEs here. And this is an opportunity for those children and young people to learn some perspective, first of all, because people are dying. That's what's important here right now. You not being able to sit an exam right now is not important when people are dying. This is an opportunity to step out of yourself and see what's going on in your community and in the world around you. And secondary to that as well is exactly what you just said, that we have our whole lives to learn. So many people reach their kind of mid-30s and they can't even remember what their exam results were. It becomes a completely, like so many people just make them up on job applications and things because nobody checks, you know. And for certain careers, yes, you need this. You know, if you want to go to university and you want to have a certain career down a certain path, you need certain qualifications for that. Absolutely fine and brilliant. Yes, you do. But you don't need it right now. No. That's the important thing to remember. Nothing bad is going to happen if you have to defer for a year. And you know, all of this is just, but it's all social conditioning, and that's the worst thing.
It's social conditioning and capitalism.
Yes, completely. Completely.
And I think that's a really important point too. So the other night I saw our PM, and I wouldn't like to be in his position right now, to be honest, but I saw this scene that really upset something in me, really upset me. It moved me to tears, to be honest. I was quite cross. The pressure placed on families to send their children to school. And in the same breath, and this was going back a few live announcements, in the same breath saying, you know, we understand if you want to keep your children home, that's okay. But then lectured parents and said, infantilized them, said, however, if your children stay home, you need to be responsible for them. This is not a holiday. And I'm sitting there in that moment thinking, I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure people are dying in the world right now. I'm pretty sure this is a crisis right now. Are we really going to tell people how to parent their children? Are we really going to continue perpetuating the myth that education is priority right now? That's not what's happening. What's happening here is we need schools to be open so that health workers and essential workers can continue to
save us.
That's right. So let's just be honest about that, though. Yeah. Let's not gaslight parents and make them feel like they're no good or they're failing or they're irresponsible if they don't send their children to school. That really bothered me. And it's not okay for our children to be offered as collateral damage in the process of this pandemic, a global crisis. Can we please, somebody, think about the children?
Yeah, absolutely.
At that point, apparently, there weren't many numbers of children contracting the virus. There have been quite a few now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to encourage families to do what is right for you. It's okay not to send your children to school, but if you need to send your children to school, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the time for us to feel bad about the decisions we make or who we are as people. This is a time where we do need to think about what's right for us and our families. Something I'm really uncomfortable with is the way that the media always has this underlying current of turning against each other. There's always this underlying current of people judging each other and turning against each other. And I just felt so disturbed in that moment by the way they were serving up this information. If you don't send your children to school, you need to be responsible for them. Now is not the time to lecture people about how to parent their children.
No, exactly.
It just really, really bothered me.
Uh-huh.
So, in saying that, I've been making plans with my children about all the different things we're going to do when I get home. We're going to lay on the grass and watch the clouds. That's one of our favourite things to do. We take our pillows outside and we lay on the ground and we watch the clouds. We have picnics outside. We jump on the trampoline. We play on the swings. Now, I saw somebody mention that their children are arguing all of the time.
Yeah.
This would be our house as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we get really loose and creative, and we do things we never thought we'd do. I set up a tent in one of the children's bedrooms on top of their bed, and I fill it with pillows and cushions and teddies and their iPad or whatever it is. And I give them a chance to go in there and get some downtime doing what they love. I separate the children. I set up environments for them that I know will make them really happy. And I let go. I absolutely let go of all the chatter in my head about, oh, bad parenting, oh, too much screen time, oh, junk food, all of that. Now is the time to let go of all of that and to enjoy each other and enjoy our children. The thing is, our children, I almost feel like our children are processing so much more of this than we are. Like you were saying before, my 5-year-old, who's a PDA, we just got her into the position where she absolutely loves and thrives at school. And now she's at home. Yeah. And she wants to be at school. And she's okay with being at home, but she just wants to be at school. And I love that you highlighted that education doesn't have to be out of a textbook. It just doesn't. It doesn't. And something I've been really impressed with, and I feel has been so many beautiful gestures, is our school has been leaving things out the front of the school for people to drive by and collect for free. Board games, stationery, paper, glue, scissors, just donating all of this stuff to families to take home and do whatever they want with. They've sent through proposed activities but said, you don't have to do this. This is completely up to you. Because there will be families whose children will require a more structured educational setting.
Absolutely.
So their homes will be set up quite routine and quite structured.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are children who like to freestyle it more, and parents who are more comfortable with freestyling. So we're all completely different in how we're going to implement change moving forward.
That's the thing. I mean, kind of, if you think of what happens in a classroom, it's not just that there's somebody there pointing to things on a board. that teacher has had time to plan that lesson. That teacher understands their subject, you would hope, and is able to deliver it in a way which is understandable for the children. She will know the different children in the class, so she's able to pitch it at different levels in order to meet their needs and things, and he or she, sorry. So, you know, so those things are going on, but also from the learner's perspective, they are there with their peers and their friends. They're in an environment where they know is set up for learning. They come to school and they switch that switch in their heads and they go into school mode and all of those kind of things. School mode in a positive way, not masking, but you know, like all of those kind of things that you do when you go into this new environment and you understand exactly what's expected of you in that environment. But then my eldest boy is now expected to sit in front of a computer and look at slides and then answer questions based on those slides, you know. So that's kind of where we're at. And you know, like he's not doing that, and you know, we work really closely with the school so that they know that that's not going to happen for him. And schools are doing the best that they can. Obviously, we're just putting stuff up for kids to do because they don't want the kids to fall behind and blah 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 blah. But you know, that's not meeting the needs of anybody. That switches me off. I can't sit here and read information on it and then answer questions on it. You know, I'm not, or I maybe could for a short period of time, but you know, and then you look on things like Facebook and Twitter and what have you, when people are saying, oh, you know, my children are sitting down at 9 o'clock and they're finishing at 3, and it's kind of,
oh no.
No. There is a fine line between keeping reasonable order and routine and maintaining that environment, and then that's not parenting either, though. That's still having that's now giving a computer screen parenting for over your children, you know. So that it's just.
And also, let's just think about this for a second. You know, we live in a society that constantly feeds us information around screen hype. Don't allow your children to be in front of a screen for too long.
Absolutely.
Don't let them have the iPad. And now people are
planting their kids in front of a computer for 8 hours. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that to judge other families. I'm just saying it's something that people are missing. Yeah. There's so much information that we're bombarded with as parents, judgmental, hypocritical information. This is why now is the time for people to learn to be intuitive in the way they parent and educate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the first things that I thought about when this all came about was a little part of me got quite excited for the families who I work with that are terrified to homeschool, because, you know, a lot of my families end up coming to me because they've been to all the other professionals, the psychs and OTs and speechies, and their children are really struggling in the school system. And they'll often say, there's no way I could ever home educate for whatever reason. And I get that, you know. But there's this part of me now that goes, I wonder how many families will realise, wow, my child has reached a new level of calm. My child's anxiety has decreased being at home and learning in their own way. This is what learning is. I can do this. I've never seen my child so happy. That will happen for a lot of families. For a lot of families, it won't. For a lot of families, it will be a struggle and it will be a battle all of the time. And that sucks. There's also going to be families that are going to have this almost, you know, like a revelation. Wow, this is home education. This is unschooling or whatever people decide to implement.
I think the people that are struggling and the families that are struggling, where the children are obviously not happy with what's going on, I think there's a measure there where the parents need to kind of take stock of what's happening in the house as well, kind of thing. Because if you've got children that are completely dysregulated in the house, and you know, if you're trying to give them things to do and they're not engaging with them, then they're the wrong things. You know, so a lot of this is about experimentation, and is about, again, pulling back and relaxing to a degree, letting the children do what they need to do and want to do, but getting that kind of fine line where they're just, the children haven't taken complete control over the household situation, kind of thing. It's about that balance, isn't it? And if the children are dysregulated and they are struggling, and you're struggling with supporting them in the right way, a lot of this is thinking, well, all right, what I'm doing is wrong. What can I do differently? How do I take a step back from this? If the children are fighting and going after each other all the time, then what can I do to engage them either individually or collectively? I mean, my children are a little bit older. They're not kind of younger, but, you know, I've got a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And we encourage them when they are irritable, or we know when one of them's irritable, not in a good mood, we encourage them to go and do something on their own. You know, we encourage them, you know, go pick up your tablet, go and talk to your friends on Xbox, go and play a game, go and read, go and do something, watch a film, do something away from the others. But when things are chilled and calm, that's when we bring them together. So it's kind of, you know, and it's difficult if you've got a lot of children, if you've got a small house, if you haven't got a garden. I mean, in the UK, it's kind of it's more common not to have a garden than it is to have one. So people have yards and things, but, you know, this is where things like chalk and stuff come in. And, you know, we need to reset and go back to things that we were playing with as children, things that we were doing as children, and those toys and games that don't rely on electricity. And, you know, I mean, it makes us sound really, really old, but you know, there was a world that, but there was a world that existed before things like computers and stuff like that, and we grew up in that world, you know, or they were very minimal in our world. So it's kind of, it's not hard to fall back into those older things. It just takes a bit of imagination and calm and patience, and that's and it can become so overwhelming as well, because everywhere you look on the internet at the moment are ideas of things to do, which is good, but also can be really, really overwhelming as well.
Because then us away from our imagination.
Exactly, that's the thing. It's being reliant. And the biggest thing that I'm going to come out with of this whole thing, once we get back to whatever normal looks like, once this is finished, is that I need to be more self-sufficient. And this has been the biggest thing in terms of being able to create my own food, being able to cook, being able to come up with new ideas of how to be with my family and how to play with my children. And all of this, we have become conditioned to not be independent. We have been conditioned to rely on other sources in order to provide for us and think for us. And that's why so many people are struggling right now. That's why people are struggling with food. You know, you go to the supermarket and the things that are left are actually ingredients.
That's
right. You know, because people have lost the skill of putting ingredients together to make something, you know, so these are the things that we need to get back. And this is the opportunity to do that now.
Yes, that's right. And it's amazing because I've been reconnecting with one of my joys, and that is cooking from scratch intuitively. I've been cooking everything from scratch, every meal, and there's been joy in it for me because there's no pressure around it. And I've loved it. I've really loved it. It's something that I'd like to continue to do more of. It's not always easy because I have children with support needs that don't allow me to, I need to be supervising all the time.
You need to be present,
but also connecting with simple things like writing, being alone with myself and my thoughts and my feelings, and knowing it's okay to not be distracted all of the time. And, you know, joking with you and saying, oh my God, I'm so autistic. I just built this whole website in 12 hours. If I didn't have kids, I'd be constantly not able to break my focus. Can't believe how much work I've got done since I've been here. But in saying that, I've also gone back to my calendar and I've given myself a week off every 3 weeks. And I've decided not to take on so many clients, which has been really hard for me because I care so deeply.
Because you want to help people.
Absolutely, absolutely. But in that process, over time, I've had more and more clients come along, and I've known that they're desperate, and I fit them in where I didn't have time. And it's taken me further and further away from my own needs and my own family. And it's been a really difficult decision. But I've also had this experience whilst I've been in quarantine where I've found peace and joy and realised that I can do things differently in life, and it's okay to. Because a lot of the time, I think that we're still contending with a lot of internalised ableism and a lot of being so hard on ourselves because of those types of broadcasts where people in power speak to us like we don't know how to live our lives, where we need to be told what to do. You know, this is a time to reconnect with the power that is within us already, the intuition, the wisdom that we already possess. We know what we need. We don't need permission. I don't need permission to live a life that is right for me and supports me. I don't need permission for that. And it's taken me 40 years to come to that realization, and that is sad. So I don't want to come out the other side of this experience and lose touch with what I've learned. I don't want to come out of this and go straight back into where we've come from. There is so much incredible opportunity inside of this, so much. And I think that's really important to note what makes us feel good, what triggers us.
Absolutely.
And to follow, to take the lead of our gut, what feels instinctually and intuitively good and not so good, to follow the lead of our children. If our children are autistic, like you were saying before, if they're behaving in a particular way, the behaviour is a byproduct of an internalised experience. Sometimes they won't have the language to let us know that something doesn't feel right. So it's our job to use the behaviour as a clue to understand that something's not right for them and to tweak things. Always tweaking, always. And the idea that there are people out there doing life perfectly is bullshit. It's bullshit. We're all winging it. We're totally winging it. We can only do the best we can.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And that last bit is just perfect because it's true. And that's the thing. It's kind of, you know, so many people live on social media now, and so many people live by social media as well, and it's kind of following what other people do and the perfection of other people's lives. And you're right, it's all a mirage. It's all guff and fluff, and there's no substance behind it, because the reality is that all of us are struggling to one degree or another. And nobody, even if you are rich, if you are poor, you all have issues that are going on. If you have illnesses, if you don't have illnesses, whatever it is, nobody's life is perfect. You know, and what looks appealing from a certain point of view isn't always appealing when you get there either. It's that whole grass is greener thing, isn't it? And, you know, and it's right now, well, ever really, not just right now, but everything's hyper focused on right now, but ever, all we can do is the best that we can. And that's, you know, we will, there is no way that anybody cannot mess up their children. We all mess up our children. That's our role as parents. That's our role as parents. You know, we do the best that we can, but we will mess up our kids, you know. And, you know, we have friendships that are perfect, and then they're not perfect all of a sudden because somebody snaps. Or, you know, we have working relationships which work brilliantly, and then all of a sudden they don't work. And this is life, and this is how we move through life, and it's how we deal with that, not only at the time but afterwards, what we learn from it and how we apply what we learn. That's the really important thing. And then, you know, the same as you, that I don't want to come out of this and just fall back into the same patterns that I was in before. You know, our life was on a real up curve prior to this. You know, we've struggled financially for a long time, and then all of a sudden, you know, we're right back where we were again. We've been like gone the past 10 years financially. But those 10 years of struggling financially have also taught us an awful lot as well. You know, that we know that we can manage on minimal income. We know that we can manage on minimal food. We know that we can still be happy whilst all that is going on. So now we are better prepared for the next 10 years when we're trying to climb out of it again, you know? So there is so much opportunity right now. And yes, people are getting sick. Some people are going to die. They are the two huge negatives that are happening in our world and in our lives right now. And that's going to impact on all of us at some point or another, whether it's now or whether it's in a few months' time or whatever, because there are byproducts of this as well, that not only is the virus causing people to die, but the focus on the virus is also causing people to die that wouldn't normally as well, because, you know,
Yes,
medical
that's
staff are
right.
engaged with what's going on and people aren't getting the medical attention they need. Things are delayed. People are more isolated, so mental health issues kick in. All of this, there's going to be byproducts for a very, very long time. But how we deal with what is happening now and how we deal with it in the future are paramount, and what we learn from that and how we apply that, they're the key things that everybody needs. If you're going to look at the big picture and you're going to extrapolate in a way that, what am I doing now that's going to make life easier for me in the future? That's maybe the way to look at it. And what's happening now that I want to keep happening.
And also extending that to outside of ourselves. How can I be kind? How can I be of service to others? Because I feel much better about who I am and how I'm living my life when I'm in service to others. And that doesn't mean giving the shirt off your back. It means asking people how they can be supported in a practical way. What can I do to help others? Because I feel like, you know, that vibrational frequency, at the risk of sounding woo-woo, the vibrational frequency right now is highly escalated. And the anxiety is rife, even for people who don't necessarily experience a lot of anxiety in their daily lives. And kindness and managing our own energy, it's like, I feel like, so when I was talking before about the way I changed my position within my own family and how everybody else kind of followed on from that, I feel like this is our opportunity to extend this out into the world now on a global scale, really. How can I manage my own energy and extend goodwill and kindness and positivity to the best of my ability while still being a human and losing my shit sometimes? How can I share that beautiful energy of love and kindness and support and extend that to others, so that they in turn will, you know, pass that forward and calm down a lot of that escalated anxiety in society? What can I do to contribute to that? Even if it's, you know, doing something like this, bringing people together, sending an email to someone to check on them, sending a letter in the mail to, you know, an elderly person, or picking up groceries for somebody who cannot do it for themselves and dropping it at their door. Whatever is within our realm of potential, I think it's really important to think outside of ourselves as well, because there's a lot of people who aren't able to do that because anxiety closes us in extremely sometimes.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is around our core values, and assessing now is a really good time to assess our values and how we want to move through the world moving forward. And I think values are so important. And I've just noticed in someone's comment there actually is saying society changing narratives has said, I feel like our society teaches us that it's not okay to trust our instincts or our children's natural curiosity to learn and discover. And that's about values. Society at the minute kind of squishes our values down and stops us using our gut and following our gut. And because actually most of us are kind people, most of us do want to help other people. Sometimes it's that we don't know how to, sometimes that people become overbearing with it. A lot of the time, because of how society has kind of driven things and capitalism has driven things, that we don't do things altruistically. There's an expectation of gratification at the end of it, and, you know, being validated for your kindness, when in actual fact, you know, it should be about, yes, it's about, kindness is about making us feel good. It is transactional, but it should be mostly about helping somebody else and doing that an act of kindness for somebody else. And it doesn't even need to be strangers. It can be for your children. It can be to yourself as well. You know, it's about that transaction can really, really be with yourself, that you can make yourself feel better and feel good about making yourself feel better. And that's where these connections are so important, connecting not only with other people, but connecting with yourself. And that's, and really kind of, again, this is an opportunity to kind of, to move away from, I mean, I think things will change. I really truly think a lot of how we live our lives will change after this, especially the longer it goes on, because, you know, humans like repetition and routine. So the longer this goes on, the more ingrained communicating like this will happen. You know, people are communicating by the internet much more, and doing Zoom calls and things like that, and using other platforms. And I think that will continue. I think the way that business works will change very much as well. And, you know, so that will have an impact on the environment. That will have an impact on people being away from their families for long periods of time. If there's more home working, people can be more tuned into each other. And, you know, so I think there is that opportunity there, but it is, again, it all comes back to our values. What do we really hold dear? What's important to us, and how can we keep that going?
It's interesting that you're saying this, because I'm aware that we need to finish up soon.
Yeah.
I did feel this deep sense of collective sadness for all of humanity amongst the positives. So when I started hearing about, you know, our PM announced a few days ago that everybody will have access to telehealth. Everybody will have access for free, bulk billed, GP, internet calls and telephone calls, psychology. We're thinking about people who are now isolated in domestic violence situations and family violence situations, having access to telehealth to assist them. The sadness for me in that, I think it's wonderful, but the sadness for me in that is this long line of so many generations of the disabled community.
I knew you were going there. Yeah.
Of people who have lived with family violence, of people with mental illness, who have gone all of their lives needing these services and not having access to them.
And crying out for those services as well, and being told that they couldn't happen.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the worst part about it. Blatantly giving information around, this is what we need. This is how we can be more productive members of society. This is how we can help the economy. This is how we can be more compliant if you meet us where we're at. This is how you can support us as a community to be more productive. And it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
And now that we have this pandemic, people are given ways to continue on. People are bringing their businesses online. We're being very creative about how we do things, and it happened very quickly.
Yeah.
It happened very quickly. And there are vulnerable communities of people who have been shouting out for this stuff for so long. And there's so much grief underwriting that for these communities. There's so much residual trauma. And I found that very, very sad. I found it really sad. It is a really positive move now. And I guess the great thing is that we can't step back from that now. There's no excuse not to help and support vulnerable people now, because we've just demonstrated as an entire world that we can do that. Oh, look what we can do. We've just done it. We've told disabled people for decades, no, we can't do that. And look what we've just done within a matter of weeks. So there's no stepping back, backing down from that now.
There's no excuses now, are there? That's the thing.
Absolutely. So I think that that's definitely a positive moving forward. We've seen a lot of changes implemented by government bodies to demonstrate that actually we can accommodate people, not just in times of crisis. So yeah, I'm just going to check the comments.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to say before we finish up? I'm loving these comments. I'm so happy you're here, changing narratives. Absolutely, here it is. You're not eligible to be billed. They are choosing not to allow you to access. On the telehealth thing, I've been told that my psych appointments aren't eligible for Medicare or private health insurance rebates because psych charges more than Medicare. No, that's not what I know to be true, Penny. As far as I knew, everybody was having access to telehealth and it was all being bulk billed, whether they charge privately or not at the moment. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to say, Kieran, before we finish up?
No, just that I want people to be safe and healthy. And, you know, we have such a rich and vibrant community. And I know that in terms of, I know you use your Facebook page an awful lot more than I do, but we have a huge crossover, and we have a big crossover in kind of followers and stuff as well. And I really feel that we have, between our two little mini communities, we have a lot of connection, and it's really important to me that I just want to know that people are safe and well. And it's, you know, and I'm sure you are the same in terms of, I am being inundated with messages and things at the moment, and it's really hard for me to get back to everybody, because, you know, I've also got to focus on my children and my family, and that's before I help anyone else. If I'm not doing that, I can't help anybody. And it's such a, I wish I could get around to everybody, but I can't. But it's, you know, this is a time for us all to come together and be visible, I think. And when people are not visible, that's time to worry about folks. So just look after each other and be kind, like we said. And, you know, and Kristy and I are doing work in the background and stuff, and a lot of different things, aren't we? But it's kind of, this was really important to me that we come together, because we've been doing work where people can't see us, and doing it well and getting on really well. And it's, I wanted people to see us now more than ever, because I think we can bring something where we can bring people together, and that's that whole connectivity thing again, isn't it? And
yeah, and something really important to me is that the community or society doesn't, you know, fall under that assumption or those myths that autistic people don't want to be connected to other people. That's rubbish.
Yeah.
You know, we do it differently, but we need connection. Human beings need connection. We need it. So, yeah, I second what Kieran's just said. I'm trying my very best to keep up with all my emails, and I want to say that even when people seem to be coping really well and really happy, it's important for us to be aware right now that people are so fragile.
Yeah.
People are really fragile, and people are really raw, and to be gentle with each other and kind to one another. And Kieran has been an incredible support to me, an absolutely incredible support. And I'm so grateful for our friendship. And I'm seriously hoping that we'll be able to leave our houses by September, because we're supposed to be going on tour. We're meant to be touring Australia together, talking about autism. And I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we're going to work on a few things, a podcast and some more webinars and some other things coming up, which will be really great to be able to do and engage with our community. So,
you know, it's Autism Acceptance Week this week, and very few people have even noticed. It's completely, it's interesting, but at the minute, everything is about autism acceptance. It's, you know, from our point of view, that's our everyday anyway. But the wider world has kind of realised that the things that we've been calling out for are the things that the whole world needs, and it's been really interesting to watch.
I always feel a little bit I always feel a lot anxious in April. I see some yucky stuff out there. Autism awareness and people being well-intentioned, but the puzzle pieces flying left, right, and center, and the lighted up blue and the autism speaks. And I don't talk a lot about that stuff on my page.
No.
I try and focus and promote
On the good stuff.
what I do love and what I do value, and I don't do a lot of talking about.
Kristy's
Are
frozen.
you still there?
Yeah, you froze for a sec.
Oh. But it can be a very triggering, traumatic time for autistic people during April.
Yeah.
So prepare for the autistics to be fragile, everybody, because we get a little bit touchy, because there's a lot of propaganda thrown out there during April. So
absolutely is. I'm hoping it's going to be watered down a bit though, just because of what's going on. I hope people will just kind of forget that it's happening, or at least be focusing on the positive stuff, because they need a bit of positivity in their lives rather than the jigsaws and the deficits. But hey ho. But thank you very much for this morning, Kristy. It's been really good, apart from our slightly delayed start and technical hitch at the beginning, where we both look like a pair of old people battering computers with hammers.
Well, actually, I looked like the old person. You were like the tech support, trying to talk me through it, and I was, absolutely clueless, like my mum in the 90s. I am my mum now. That's another thing I've noticed, because I can't get a haircut. My hairdresser's shut because they're in the city. So my hair's growing out and I've got so much grey. But it's...
Have you seen mine?
Yeah, but I'm so okay with it. I'm so okay with it. You can't see it now, but I was looking in the mirror just going, wow, this is my life.
Yeah.
Like, this is, to state the obvious.
Yeah. I'm
40. I remember when my mum was 40. I remember when my mum was 25. I was 5 when my mum was 25. Life just happens so quickly, and I found myself looking in the mirror tonight at my greys just going, wow. I could have sworn I was 15 yesterday, but here we are, clueless about technology, with someone over the other side of the world telling me how to do it. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure.
Always.
And yeah, I hope everybody looks after themselves and is kind to one another. And thank you for being here.
And thank you for all your questions and comments as well, everybody. It's been, even though we had our technical hitch and we've come over to YouTube, it's been quite gratifying to see everybody here. So thank you. Okay. Right. I shall stop the stream. So take care, everyone, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.